7 spine-chilling Halloween party tales exposing terrifying secrets that will haunt you forever. Sarah clutched her children's hands tighter as they walked down the dimly lit street, the orange glow of jack-o'-lanterns casting eerie shadows. Laughter echoed from yards, but the laughter felt wrong, twisted somehow. It was Halloween night in the suburban neighborhood she thought had everything until she noticed the electric air of anxiety beneath the smiles. Whispers of urban legends danced in the night, warning of the disappearances that haunted this very town. A girl vanished near the old oak tree. They say she wasn't. The first a shiver raced down her spine as she realized just how many secret glances her neighbors exchanged. Their smiles felt half-hearted, almost a mask hiding something deeper. There, a cloaked figure peering from just beyond the glow of decorations. Was it just a costume? Her heart raced, an instinctive dread flickering to life. Anxiety clawed at her stomach, but she shook it off. It was just Halloween, just a party, right? The night continued, families gathering, sharing spine-tingling tales that tugged at the threads of folklore. Sarah fought to push away the creep of unease gnawing at her edges, until whispers rippled like wine through the crowd. What was that? She caught snippets. The cloaked watcher, a name that made her blood run cold. How many whispered stories had spilled from these lips before? Furtive glances, sly smiles, it was as if they were hiding something sinister. And all around her, the air thickened with unspoken fears. It hit hard when, without warning, the lights blinked and went out, plunging the neighborhood into a suffocating blackness. Chaos erupted as children screamed, and adults fumbled for light. Cell phones flashed like desperate stars in the thick void. Panic swirled around Sarah as she gathered her children close, every heartbeat echoing fear. "Stay close. Stay together," she yelled, her voice drowned out by muffled cries. Neighbors darted into the shadows, leaving a chilling emptiness behind. Whispers turned into frantic chatter. In the thick darkness, fear became tangible, palpable. "Did you hear that?" One woman screamed. Another frantically muttered, "It's the cloaked watcher, he's come for us." The shadows seemed to grow longer. They swayed with malicious intent. Sarah's breath hitched as she fought for clarity amid the panic. What were they all hiding? Who was the cloaked figure lurking at the edge of her vision? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As fear twisted the fabric of her neighborhood, Sarah shifted into detective mode, desperately searching for clues among the chaos. Was the cloaked figure more than a ghost story? With every frantic second ticking by, she realized the figure wasn't just a myth, they were a respected neighbor, deep in this web of secrets. Her stomach churned. The weight of knowing dirty truths pressed down, threatening to crush her. And then they began to chant soft and sinister, weaving through the darkness like a knife. Her heart raced. The hypnotic rhythm of voices grew louder, and one thought pierced through the black fog. The very people she sought solace from might be the reason for her nightmares. In that moment, Sarah understood. Survival was just the beginning. She had to expose the darkness enveloping her family. A chill ran through her as she faced the truth. Who would she have to confront to protect her children? As shadows danced around her and whispers grew into a cacophony, she took a steadying breath, ready to unravel the sinister pulse of her seemingly perfect neighborhood. A piercing scream shattered the insistent murmur of voices, cutting through the darkness like a knife. Sarah's heart skipped. It was her daughter, Lily. "Mom!" The fear in her little voice coiled tighter around her chest. In the chaos, Sarah's grip slipped for just a second. Panic surged, her breath quickening as she scanned the shadows, seeing only indistinct shapes flitting in and out of the flickering phone lights. "Lily," she called out, her voice trembling. "Where are you?" Each moment stretched, a taut string of dread threatening to snap. She shoved aside the chilling thoughts curling at the edges of her mind. There was no time for fear. She had to find her. Her eyes flicked toward the sound of her daughter's cry, the ghostly light of cell phones flickering through the trees. "Help, please." Lily's voice melted into a whimper. It was close, impossibly close. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. The chanting escalated, resonating through the night air, wrapping around her like a shroud. A fog crept in, swirling with a nauseating sweetness, making it hard to think. She swallowed her fear and pushed forward, her heart pounding like a drum, every pulse urging her to run. Glancing to her left, she caught a shadow darting between two houses. Someone was watching, someone waiting. Panic clawed at her throat. "Stay together. Everyone, stay together," she shouted, her voice cracking, fracturing under the weight of hysteria. And then she saw him, the cloaked watcher. He stood still, like a dark sentinel at the edge of the fading light. The cloak billowed slightly, almost like it had a life of its own, the fabric shimmering unnaturally. He raised a hand, a slow, deliberate motion that seemed to hush the panicked crowd. A dimness draped over the gathering, as if he commanded the night itself. Sarah pushed through the crowd, fighting the chill rising on her skin. "I need to find my daughter," she cried, urgency twisting her words. The murmurs grew softer, shifting the attention back to her. Faces she'd known for years twisted with concern. But behind their worry lurked something more menacing. Were they all complicit? "Look," one neighbor murmured, pointing tremblingly. "Look to the old oak tree." Sarah's heart dropped. That tree, the same one where the girl had vanished. Their neighbor's whispers textured the air around her. Next to the tree stood a small figure, hidden in the dark. Was it Lily? "Lily!" Sarah shouted, horrified at the thought that the shadows might swallow her child before she could reach her. She sprinted towards the tree, terror fueling her every step. The chanting grew sharper with each inch of her approach, a chorus of indistinguishable voices wrapping around her, clawing at her mind. It was like a spell, another trap laid out in the darkness. As Sarah reached the base of the ancient oak, a sense of dread washed over her. The figure was not a child, it was a doll, lifeless and cruelly rendered with a smile painted on its porcelain face. A frantic shout caught her attention. "Over here." It was her son, tugging on her sleeve, his face pale as moonlight. "They're all leaving, Mom. We have to go." But the trees creaked ominously, their branches stretching like fingers hungry for her. The chanting lingered in her ears, the words incomprehensible yet insistent. Something prowled just beyond the flickering lights. The cloaked watcher wasn't just a neighbor. He was the heart of this nightmare. Refusing to yield to despair, Sarah spun toward her son. "We have to leave now." The ground beneath her seemed to breathe. The leaves rustled, whispers threading through the air, and for a moment, her resolve wavered. But as she turned to face the shadows once more, she felt it something watching. A horrifying realization rooted itself in her chest. What if this was all a game to them? What if they were the next sacrifice? As they sprinted toward the safety of the street, Sarah's mind raced. She needed a plan. There had to be a way to expose them, to make them face the darkness that had seeped into their once quiet neighborhood. But could she do it before it was too late? The dread hung heavy as they finally reached the flickering light of their house. But deep within, Sarah knew the battle was just beginning, and the cloaked watcher would not let them escape easily. The night was far from over, and the true horrors were about to unfold. The door slammed shut behind Sarah and her son, a hefty thud that momentarily shattered the heavy air. She locked the door with trembling hands, feeling the cold metal sink into her palm. The flickering light from the street lamp barely penetrated the living room's edges, casting dangerous shadows that danced in the corners. Sarah's heart raced as she turned, searching the room for any signs of safety, anything that could disguise her growing fears. "Mom, what is happening?" her son whispered, his voice trembling like a leaf in a storm. He clutched a toy, his only comfort in this nightmare. "I don't like it, I want to go home." Home? The word tasted sour on her tongue. Their neighborhood had become a maze of terror. "We are home," she murmured, the realization sinking in like a weight on her chest. She moved toward the window, drawn by the flickering lights outside. Her eyes narrowed as her breath caught in her throat. The cloaked watcher stood at the edge of their yard, a dark figure against the swirling shadows. He was no longer just a watcher, he was a hunter. Sarah's stomach nodded, and instinct urged her to pull her son away from the fatal view. Get away from the window, she hissed, shoving her son back into the dim room. Stay quiet. The chanting outside grew louder, a haunting melodic weave that seemed to call to the darkness. She pressed her hands against her ears, but the sound burrowed deep into her mind, making it impossible to escape. What do we do, Mom? He asked, eyes wide. The innocence in his question twisted the knife in Sarah's heart. I don't know, she snapped, panic rising. She raked her fingers through her hair, heart pounding as she glanced around the room. The comforting familiarity of their home felt foreign, tainted by the encroaching dread. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, reverberating through the air like gunfire. The sound sent them both jumping, a cold wave of fear rolling over them. Mom, I've got to check, Sarah said, her voice low, as if the shadows were listening. She moved cautiously toward the kitchen, her breath shallow. The walls felt like they were closing in, and every step echoed like a loud thunderclap. The kitchen was a mess, cabinets swung open, dishes shattered on the floor, as if a storm had ripped through the room. Yet eerily it was empty. She felt exposed, the hairs on her neck standing up. Mom, please, her son's voice broke through. Stay there. I'll be right back, she shouted, though her heart raced with doubt. She stepped slowly into the room, scanning for any signs of threat. And then she saw it, a small, faint glow peeking from the back of the pantry. With trembling hands, she pulled the door wider and gasped. There, in the shadows, a flickering candle illuminated crude symbols drawn on the walls. A chill clawed up her spine. This was no ordinary Halloween gathering. Suddenly, the lights in the house started dimming, one by one, like a slow suffocation. Panic surged. She turned to run back to her son when a familiar voice drifted through the darkness, soft and haunting. Mommy, help me, it was Lily. Lily! Sarah screamed, her heart hammering against her ribs. She turned desperately toward the front door, where the swirling darkness outside pulsed almost as if alive. Stay here, she called back to her son, but he was already moving, pulled by an invisible thread toward the door, following the sound of his sister's voice. Time slowed. Sarah's feet were rooted to the floor, the pull of terror clashing with a mother's instinct. Could she reach Lily before the shadows swallowed them all whole? The candle flickered more violently, its flames casting grotesque shapes across the walls, as the chants escalated to a feverish pitch outside. Just when she thought she had lost all hope, the front door creaked open, and a pair of glowing eyes pierced the darkness beyond. Mommy, come play. The voice was not Lily's. It was something darker, something waiting to consume everything she loved. Sarah felt her breath hitch. The choice loomed in front of her, like a precipice above. An endless void. Would she leap into the arms of darkness to save her child? She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The threads of fear pulled tighter as she stood on the brink of a horror deeper than she imagined. And then she darted forward, past the encroaching shadows, toward the glowing eyes, praying it wouldn't be the last thing she ever saw. What awaited her on the other side? The air thickened as Sarah lunged through the doorway, the world outside swallowed by darkness. The glowing eyes flickered, sharp and watchful, fixed on her with an intensity that sent chills rippling down her spine. She was no longer a mother frantically searching for her lost child. She was prey, mere instinct. Mommy, the voice twisted in her ears, a mockery of comfort, pulling her closer. A flash of her daughter's face danced in her mind, laughter and joy now eclipsed by this malevolent echo. Lily! Sarah shouted, her voice barely recognizable, raw with desperation. She felt the push of something unseen, urging her deeper into the shadows, into that consuming darkness. The porch creaked underfoot, the wood warped and unforgiving, as though the very house conspired against her. Each creak sent a shiver down her back, reminding her of the cold reality that this was no harmless prank. The chanting surged once again, louder, more insistent, the pitch clawing at the edges of her sanity. A figure stepped into view, cloaked heavy in night, its face obscured by the shadows of the hood. "Come, come, Sarah," it rasped, voice silky and malicious, weaving through the air like a serpentine whisper. "She's waiting. So close, where is she?" Sarah's voice trembled, anger and fear mingling. She had lost Lily once. She wouldn't do so again. She edged forward, heart racing, fueled by the fading hope that maybe, just maybe, she could snatch her daughter from this nightmare. "I can help," the figure drawled, stepping closer, the guitar strings of its voice tightening around her throat. "But only if you want it enough." It gestured towards the distant flicker, urging her, beckoning her with long skeletal fingers. "No," she shouted, suddenly aware of the wicked glint in its eyes. This thing was not here to help. The soft, soothing voice of her daughter echoed more clearly, drifting through the neighborhood like a chilling breeze. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Stop," Sarah cried, her breath coming in gasps. She spun around, scanning for her son, the very lifeline to her courage. He stood frozen, pale and trembling. She waved him back urgently. "Come back. Get inside." But before he could move, the front door suddenly slammed shut, the sound reverberating like a gunshot through the night. The heavy thud seemed to rattle her bones, darkening the world around them. It felt like a finality, a barrier between them and safety. "No." Her heart raced as panic clawed at her throat. She rushed forward, fumbling for the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge, as if the house itself held them hostage. "Too late," the figure whispered, its presence now a looming shadow that blocked out hope. "Join us or let her go." It tilted its head toward the void beyond, where the chanting swirled with a hypnotic allure. "Mommy, please," her son's voice cut through the thick haze of darkness like a knife. "I want to go home." Sarah's heart clenched painfully. "I'm right here. Hold on." But fear gripped her thick and heavy. The darkness shifted, swirling around them, forming shapes that could almost be fingers reaching out, snatching at her. "Choose," the figure hissed, voice dripping with malice, as the chanting swelled around them in a maddening crescendo. Frantic now, she looked around, desperately searching for escape while clinging to the last threads of hope. Then the chaos exploded. The flickering light inside erupted into a sea of flame, illuminating everything in a grotesque dance of shadows. As the flames licked the walls, Sarah's heart raced. Reality twisted. The thin veil between safety and doom peeled away. "Lily!" she screamed, and the world around her ignited. In that terrifying moment, nothing made sense. The house shuddered. The figure hissed. The shadows lunged, the line between her choices blurred as screams clawed their way out of her throat. Would she save her son? Find Lily? Or succumb to the void that promised everything and offered nothing? As chaos enveloped her, she took a breath. Ready to leap into an unknown hell, what would she find in the inferno? The smoke wrapped around Sarah like a shroud, thick and suffocating. She stumbled as the heat pressed against her skin, and the flames crackled like sinister laughter. In that moment of agony, she felt lost, trapped in a hell of her own making. She had to think of something, anything to pull her back from the brink. "Lily!" She screamed again, but the sound was swallowed by the roaring flames, distorted into a haunting echo. Her heart raced, threatening to shatter as fear clawed at her, but she couldn't allow panic to consume her. She pressed her palms against the door, fighting with all her strength to turn the knob, but it resisted, almost mocking her desperation. "Mommy! Help!" Her son's voice, frantic and terrified, tied her stomach in knots. Every instinct screamed at her to save him, yet she had to find Lily first. "Stay there, Jack," she shouted, her voice becoming a growl of defiance against the swirling chaos, promising herself she'd return. She turned, determined to delve deeper into the nightmare that now surrounded her. The shadows twisted and danced, beckoning her to join them. She stumbled forward, drawn towards the glow that flickered at the edge of the hall. As she moved, the floorboards splintered beneath her feet, the house seeming to groan in response to her presence. It was as if the very structure was trying to shake her off, to keep her away from whatever lay ahead. Her heart hammered in her chest as she crept closer to the haunting light. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement, a silhouette emerging from a doorway. "Lily," she called, desperation ratcheting her voice up an octave. The figure turned, and all the warmth she once felt drained away. The face, though familiar, was twisted and ghostly, a haunting reflection of her daughter caught in a moment of unspeakable fear. "Mommy!" Lily's voice rose above the chaos, but her eyes were filled with something far older than childhood innocence, a deep, unearthly despair. "Why did you leave me? I'm here. I'm here." Sarah rushed forward, but before she could reach her, shadows erupted from the walls, writhing like serpents, and snagged at her limbs, pulling her back. "No, let me go." They dragged her towards the figure cloaked in darkness, the entity from before, now looming behind her daughter. Its eyes glinted with wicked delight as it pulled the strings of this unfathomable nightmare. "She belongs to us now," it hissed, voice wrapping around her, suffocating her will to rebel. "Mommy!" Lily cried again, but the once familiar little girl was unrecognizable, transformed into a vessel of terror. "You have to choose." Terror tightened Sarah's throat like a vice. "What do you mean? Choose what?" She felt the heat of the flames fanning against her skin, a warning of the impending doom. "Your love or your survival." As the words hung in the air, the chanting escalated into a deafening crescendo, a dissonant symphony that pierced her very soul. The figure had its hands up, weaving a dark spell. Struggling against the shadows, Sarah felt a vast emptiness just beyond, void of light, and filled with a malevolence that quivered along her spine. "Stop!" she screamed, the terror pooling inside her like molten lava ready to erupt. But the darkness surged forward, suffocating. The boundary between her and her daughter blurred, twisting like smoke. "You can't save both," the entity taunted, and the shadows closed in tighter, threatening to pull her into their depths. "Mommy, please!" Lily's voice cracked, filled with desperation. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with sweat and soot. Sarah took a breath, her mind racing. Would she let her child drown in this evil to save herself? Or would she choose a path fraught with horror to reach for an uncertain salvation? "Join us," the figure hissed as the shadows surged into a vortex around her. In that moment, Sarah understood. The flames, her daughter's cries, the dark figure, everything was part of a gruesome puzzle she had to solve. And the most terrifying choice loomed ahead, a choice that would either sacrifice her own life or plunge them both into a darkness that promised all she feared. With her heart pounding, she dove into the inferno. Would she emerge to save them both, or would the shadows claim them for eternity? A deafening roar filled her ears as she was consumed. What awaited her in the depths of that darkness? Sarah was engulfed in darkness. It clung to her like a second skin, wrapping around her limbs, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The inferno had vanished, leaving her suspended in an eerie quiet. For a moment, she believed the nightmare was over, but the oppressive silence sang its own terrifying tune, resonating with a low, droning hum that settled deep in her bones. "Lily," she whispered, the name almost choked by dread as it escaped her lips. No answer. The silence only darkened. Suddenly, cold winds began to stir, swirling around her, spinning like restless spirits. A faint glow flickered in the distance. The pale light pulsed erratically, beckoning. Gripping the sensation of hope, she sprinted toward it, her legs moving instinctively, even as a nagging fear crawled at the back of her mind. As Sarah approached, the world shifted. The walls of nothingness twisted and morphed, revealing a fragmented version of her home. The familiar contours of rooms blurred, twisted with grotesque semblances of reality. The living room flickered like a faulty bulb, filled with shadows that danced unervingly, distorting their shapes in a nightmarish ballet. "Lily," Sarah called again, but the shadows only mocked her, their whispers echoing her desperation. Then, She saw it the mirror hanging above the mantelpiece. It gleamed with that same haunting sheen, reflecting not her image but a nightmarish realm filled with despair. The glass pulsated, revealing Lily seated in the corner, her little arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She had become a shadow of her former self, her face streaked with tears that shimmered like glass. As Sarah reached for the mirror, it rippled, and a wave of icy air rushed out. The entity loomed in its depths, grinning wider, satisfaction gleaming in its darkened eyes. "This is your fault," it sneered, voice like ice needles against her skin. "You left her behind now. She belongs to me. Get away from her," Sarah yelled, but her voice cracked under the weight of fear. The shadows surged, monstrous forms emerging from the walls, stretching long, thin fingers toward her. The air thickened, twisting with a stench of decay and ash. "Choose," the entity's voice roared, echoing off the walls. "Are you ready to let love take the fall? Or will you embrace the void?" Heart racing, Sarah's breath quickened. The choice loomed: save her daughter or embrace the darkness surrounding them both. "No, I want to leave her," she cried, lunging at the mirror, ready to pull her daughter back from the folds of despair. But the shadows clung like leeches, violent and insatiable, pulling her downwards into the mirage. "Your love is not enough," taunted. "Love cannot create light in this abyss." "Lily!" Sarah screamed, trying to feel her way through the malevolent blackness. She fought against the chains of fear, hoping that somehow love could pierce through the darkness. Then a flicker of light pierced the gloom. Jack's face appeared within the mirror, his eyes wide with terror, reaching toward Sarah. "Mommy, don't give up." The warmth of his voice sent waves of hope crashing against the cold of despair that gripped her heart. With fresh determination, Sarah pushed through the shadows, aiming for Lily's trembling figure. Her resolve ignited as she felt a flicker of warmth rising within her. "Hold on, I'm coming." Her voice rang with a newfound strength, but even as she lunged to grasp her daughter, the shadows clawed into her, tearing at the edges of her reality. Amidst the suffocating darkness, Sarah caught a glimpse of Lily's gaze, filled with a mix of fear and something deeper: trust. With that glimmer, Sarah felt something shift inside her, a link strengthened by maternal love. But even as she reached out, the swirling void around them tightened, threatening to consume all hope. "Your love means nothing here," the darkness shrieked, a cacophony of despair spiraling around them. Desperate, Sarah could feel the walls closing in, knowing she had to choose, and time was slipping away. Would she plunge deeper into the abyss for her daughter's sake? Or could she find a way to pull them both back from the brink? As shadows danced wickedly, her heart thundered in the silence of the void, crushing hope beneath their weight. With the darkness stifling her, she realized the greatest horror lay not just within the shadows, but in the choice she was about to face. What breaking point lay ahead? Would she fall, or would she find a way to emerge from the depths of despair? Sarah felt the shadows tightening around her like a noose, each inch pulling her closer to oblivion. A primal scream echoed in her mind. Should she give up? Should she abandon the futile struggle? But the flicker of Lily's wide eyes held her steady. She couldn't surrender. "Lily!" she cried again, forcing her voice to break through the darkness. She fought against the suffocating grip, straining to reach her daughter. The air around them pulsed, an agonizing reminder of despair's reach. "Mommy, please," came a small, trembling whisper from within the void, just loud enough for Sarah to grasp at her heart. A fresh surge of energy ripped through her. The warmth of hope intermingled with fear blossomed in her chest, like flames igniting in cold ashes. With determination rising, Sarah pushed against the darkness. Her fingers clawed for the mirror. "Stay with me, Lily," she begged, tears streaming down her face. The shadows twitched as if sensing her renewed resolve. They recoiled slightly, but not for long. The entity watching from the mirror's depth hissed, an ominous sound like whined through a cracked window. "You think you can win? You think love binds in a world so twisted? You are playing with despair." With each word, the air thickened with a suffocating terror. Yet, Ignoring the chill seeping through her skin, Sarah focused on Lily. Each heartbeat thudded like a war drum, pushing her forward. Just a little closer, I won't let go, Sarah shouted, lunging with everything she had left. The glass felt warm against her fingertips, a strange warmth at odds with the chaos surrounding her. She could feel Lily's fragile form, her presence suffused with despair. Then take her. Take your daughter. The shadows taunted, fingers clawing at Sarah's legs, dragging her back into the abyss. Reality warped. Images of Lily faded, replaced by grotesque scenes of loss and sorrow. The mirror pulsated again, and more grotesque faces emerged. Every tear Sarah had ever shed worn as a mask. Tormented expressions peered out from every inch of the glass, mouths stretching wide in silent screams. They resonated with her, amplifying the pain she struggled to keep at bay. Help me. I can't hold on. Lily's voice broke through faintly, tangled in the cacophony of torment. No, Sarah roared, feeling the last vestiges of her stamina draining. I'm coming for you. It was like pushing through molasses. The voices and shadows clawed for her as she ventured deeper into the mirror's realm. Suddenly, a sharp flash of light erupted from her heart, igniting a path through the dark. She saw it then, a passage woven from the threads of love stitched together by hope. This was not the end, but the spark needed to ignite their escape. Lily, Sarah shouted, stretching her hand. She didn't just want to reach her daughter. She needed to bring her back, to shield her from the torment encompassing them. She felt the solidity of the warmth rise within her, casting a vibrant glow that pushed against the shadows. The entity shrieked, the sound splitting through the darkness like glass shattering. No, you will not escape. As if in response, the dark figures began to dissolve, their terrifying features unraveling into nothingness. But Sarah knew they would regenerate. The void would not let them go easily. Hold on, she cried, feeling Lily's small hand clasp around her fingers, tender yet strong. In that moment, her world warped, and they were drawn into a whirlwind of light, hurtling both of them toward hope. But the void howled, rage fueling its attempts to reclaim them. As they flew through the swirling passage, the jagged laughter of the entity rippled behind them, chilling Sarah to her bones. You might escape this time, but you cannot outrun the darkness forever. Keep going, Sarah urged, sensing they were near the edge, a break in the black sea of despair. But as they neared the light, shadows clawed desperately at their heels, wrapping around Sarah, making her heart race with panic. Would they slip back into darkness, or could she pull her daughter back to safety? With every ounce of strength, she pushed forward, but in the blinding light, a chilling thought crept in. What price would she have to pay to save Lily? As they pierced through, engulfed by the radiance, everything around them exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors. But the shadows lingered just outside the boundary, waiting. What darkness fell behind them? Would their flight from terror mark a new beginning? Or was it merely the start of more nightmares to come? Emerging from the whirlwind of colors, the world around Sarah and Lily shifted dramatically. They landed with a thud on hard ground, surrounded by an eerie silence that buzzed like static. Sarah blinked, disoriented as her eyes adjusted to dim light. The air felt heavier, dense with foreboding. She quickly scanned the surroundings, a decrepit room, its walls steeped in grime and shadow. Broken furniture lay scattered about, and the cold chill of decay crept into Sarah's bones. Mommy? Lily's voice quivered beside her, cutting through the stillness. Lily. Sarah turned, gripping her daughter tighter. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by another wave of dread. Are you okay? She brushed Lily's hair away from her face, searching for reassurance in her daughter's wide, terrified eyes. I think so, Lily stammered, standing close against her mother. But the room felt alive, vibrating with a tension that made Sarah's skin prickle. Where are we? Sarah whispered, peering into the shadows that seemed to pulse as if breathing. Before Lily could reply, a sharp noise sliced through the silence, a distant thud, echoing down a hallway. Instinctively, Sarah pulled Lily closer, heart pounding like an army in retreat. This was no safe haven. The air thickened, oppressive, and the shadows loomed, threatening to suffocate hope. "You don't belong here," the entity's voice echoed through the cavernous space, a chilling whisper that curled around them like smoke. "Return to the void." As the words washed over them, darkness flickered at the edges of the room, teasing the boundaries of their fragile safety. Sarah's breath quickened, a clawing sense of danger gnawing at her. She could sense it even without sight. The malevolence was there, lurking. "We have to get out," she urged Lily, spurring into sudden action. "Over there." She pointed at a dimly lit door at the opposite end of the room, hidden under layers of neglect. But as they moved, the shadows slithered closer, seeming to shift and change with malicious glee. "We can't let them catch us," Sarah said, her voice rising in desperation. "Mommy." Lily's small hand trembling in hers felt both a comfort and a weight. How did they escape one hell only to risk falling into another? They reached the door, but as Sarah swung it open, a gust of rancid air slammed against her face, sending a wave of nausea through her. What lay beyond was a dim corridor, lined with doors that seemed to whisper secrets of despair. Sarah came a soft, familiar voice from the shadows along the walls. She froze, recognition sending ice coursing through her. "No," she whispered, the chill of another moment flashing before her eyes. "Couldn't he be? Shouldn't he be? Not again." "Join us," the shadows beckoned, every inch of dark whispering her name, promising comfort in madness. The darkness seemed to pulse with memories, fragments of sorrow she didn't want to remember. "Keep going," she shouted at Lily, pulling her through the threshold as echoes of the past taunted them. They sprinted down the corridor, heartbeats synchronized in panic. The air crackled, as if the walls themselves bore witness to great suffering. Behind them, the entity unleashed a wail, a mournful sound that chilled Sarah's soul. "Your love cannot save you here," it snarled, the darkness racing forward like a wave, consuming everything in its path. "Please, run," Sarah urged, hope clashing with despair as she felt the shadows at her back. Time was running out. Did escape truly await them, or had they merely sold themselves into another snare? As they reached the next door, Sarah's hand trembled on the handle, uncertainty flooding her. What horrors awaited them on the other side? Before she could decide, the door rattled violently behind them. Shadows clawed against the wood. "We can't go back," Lily cried, fear seeping into her voice. With a final swell of courage, Sarah flung the door open. The sight ahead made her freeze once more. Dark figures sprawled across the walls, their faces twisted in agony. A scene of suffering painted in shadows. "Mommy, what are they?" Lily trembled, clutching Sarah tight. "Just stay close, we'll find a way out. We have to." But as they stepped into the room, the door crashed shut with a deafening roar, trapping them in a world woven from their worst fears. As the shadows converged, whispering threats, Sarah stood frozen between their safety and the encroaching darkness. Where could they possibly run to now? And then, from the shadows, a familiar face emerged, a twisted smile spreading across its features. "Welcome back," it rasped, sending ice curling through Sarah's veins. What awaited them in this new terror? Was it a friend or another predator dressed in familiar clothing? The revelations carved a deeper fear within her as dread took root. "Turn around," Sarah's heart raced. But the darkness surged like an unforgiving tide. Could they survive what awaited beyond the door? Or had they walked headlong into an even deeper nightmare? The air grew heavier, thick with foreboding as Sarah listened to the echo of the voice. It was familiar and twisted all at once, a jagged shard of memory that sliced through her defenses. She forced herself to look closer, her breath hitching as the shadowy figure stepped forward. It was her sister, Emily, a once vibrant soul now reduced to a grotesque reflection. The smile on her face was a mockery of the joy they once shared. "Did you think you could escape?" she crooned, her voice oozing with malice. "You brought her to us," Emily, Sarah gasped, trembling. She hardly recognized the eyes that flickered with a haunting light. "We are your family. Come home. Stay back," Sarah shouted, instinctively pulling Lily behind her. The shadows from the walls writhed, hungry for warmth and light. Panic surged through her, a visceral need to protect her daughter from this nightmare. "Mommy," Lily whimpered, sensing the danger seep into her bones. "Don't look at her," Sarah hissed, scanning for an escape, knowing Emily wasn't Emily anymore. The twisted version of her sister stepped closer, drawing the shadows into a swirling dance, pulsing with energy. "Together we can be whole again," the figure sang, her voice sweet and sickening. The promise of safety danced on the edge of Sarah's thoughts, threatening to pull her under like a tide that drags you to the deep. A flicker of doubt crept in. Is it really her? "No," Sarah shouted defiantly. "You're not my sister." She felt the shadows push against an invisible barrier, testing her resolve. "Why fight it? Embrace what you were always meant for." The shadowy Emily extended her hand, and Sarah nearly reached out, her heart caught in a tug-of-war between love and terror. Lily whimpered loudly now, clinging desperately to her mother's side. The air crackled, the shadows fuming, and Sarah could feel the horror coiling around them like a serpent. "Please, let us go. We have to find another way," she urged Lily, as dread settled into her stomach. But before they could move, the walls trembled, the figures within them igniting like a firestorm of pain. Faces twisted in torment pushed through the shadows, grasping for Sarah and Lily, pleading for release from their eternal prison. "Help us," a voice called, the agony threaded through the words, echoing in her ears. "Set us free, Mommy." "I don't want to," Lily cried, eyes wide with fear, her small voice strained and breaking. "I know, baby, I know," Sarah soothed, though her own heart raced in a frantic beat against the pressure of the shadows. "We won't let them take you." With a fierce determination, Sarah tightened her grip on Lily. "We can't stay. We have to fight back." They turned together, searching the room filled with whispers and desperate pleas. It was overwhelming, the noise writhing like live wires in the air. The path was dark and twisted, and for every step they took, the shadows threatened to pull them back. But the promise of escape flickered ahead, a sliver of pale light seeping from the far end. "Run," Sarah urged, shoving Lily ahead of her. They darted through the heavy air, each stride echoing her pulse pounding in her ears. "Join us," Emily called behind them, her voice now a cacophony of tears and rage. "You can't outrun your destiny." The door at the end of the corridor stood slightly ajar, a breath of cool air beckoning them. The shadows screeched in frustration, clawing at their heels as they surged forward, pouring from the walls like molten waves. "Almost there," Sarah shouted, but with every inch they gained, more shadows unfurled, blocking their path, reaching for them hungrily. "Don't look back. Don't stop." They slammed through the door just as a mass of darkness rose to engulf them. The light wrapped around them, pulling them through, but the shadows didn't relent. With a heart-stopping thud, they tumbled into another room, disoriented as they hit the floor. The air was enveloped in silence. Sarah looked around, breath hitching in her throat. What now? Panic gnawed at her gut as she realized they were not alone. Dark figures circled them, and from the edges of the shadows, another familiar face emerged. "Did you really think you could escape?" This voice flowed like ice through the air. It was her father, twisted and gnarled from the darkness that held him. "We're waiting for you," he intoned, his gaze aching with memories Sarah thought she had buried long ago. The shadows crept closer, tightening around them like a noose. What twisted fate awaited them now? Would they finally uncover the truth behind this darkness? Or had they just stepped into a deeper nightmare? The shadows loomed ominously, swirling like a dark tempest as Sarah faced the nightmare that had taken her father. The familiarity of his voice sent chills down her spine. This was no loving dad she remembered, but a twisted mockery of the man she once knew. "You should have never come back, Sarah," he said, stepping closer. The darkness flickered around him, revealing a face riddled with sadness and rage, eyes gleaming with a hunger she feared would swallow them whole. "Stay away from us," Sarah shouted, trying to shield Lily behind her. But the tendrils of darkness hissed and curled, slithering closer, trying to pull her into their depths. The air thickened with despair, a suffocating presence that pressed on her chest. Lily clutched her mother's waist, her small frame trembling. "Mommy, I'm scared," she whimpered, and the sound cut through Sarah's heart like a dagger. The warmth of their bond flickered, challenged by the icy dread surrounding them. "Fight it, Daddy. You're not him," she cried, desperation tightening her throat. "We've come to save you." But even as she said the words, the chilling truth sank in. The father she loved had been lost to the darkness long ago, a mere shell of memory now. "It's too late for that," he replied, his voice low and resonant, echoing menacingly around them. "Join us, be one with us, embrace the darkness." "No." Sarah's voice rang with defiance, each word fueled by the fierce love she felt for her daughter. She would not succumb. "You can't take us. We choose to fight back." With that, she gripped Lily's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of her daughter's small fingers fill her with renewed strength. The figures around them hissed, darkness pooling like ink at their feet. They began to chant in eerie harmony, a mixture of familiar faces twisted in anguish as they begged for release. These were remnants of her family, voices haunting her with past sorrows. "Mommy, I don't want to hear them," Lily cried, pressing her small hands over her ears as if trying to block out the truth. "No, no, no," Sarah whispered, desperation clawing at her. They had no choice but to move forward. "We have to find a way out." As they stepped back toward the door they had come through, a sharp crack echoed from behind them. The dark figures lunged, their faces distorting into that of her sister, the shadows leering, eyes wide and hungry. "You can't escape your true self. Run," Sarah yelled, propelled by instinct. She and Lily bolted toward the far door, racing against the tide of darkness surging behind them. Fear drove them forward, the frantic thrum of their hearts matching the rhythm of their footfalls against the floor, echoing with purpose. "Don't look back," Sarah shouted, as the shadows clawed at their heels like 1,000 grasping fingers. The bright glimmer of light shone ahead, a stark contrast to the encroaching void. With a final desperate burst of energy, Sarah pushed Lily ahead and slammed against the door, throwing it open to reveal a place that felt eerily familiar, a sweeping view of their sunny childhood backyard, where she and Emily used to play. Aromas of freshly mown grass and summer sweets washed over her. Could it be? The darkness pinched at her mind, whispering cruel taunts, pulling her deeper into despair. "You know it's just an illusion," it hissed. "You will always return." But holding onto the warmth of Lily's small hand fueled her resolve. "This is real," Sarah shouted to the shadows. She stepped outside, forcing every ounce of love and hope into her words. Now is the time to break free. Quickly, the idyllic backyard warped. The grass wilted, the sky dimmed, and colors leached away into grayscale as the darkness rippled, trying to consume them again. "No," she growled, pushing against the horror threatening to envelop them. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily cried, clutching her tightly. "Stay close, baby," Sarah insisted, the echoes around them escalating in a furious crescendo. "We are stronger together." Then, she remembered the flickering warmth they had felt in the void. It sparked inside her and suddenly, from within, a blinding light radiated outward, forcing back the shadows. "This is our love. You can't take this from us." With every ounce of strength, Sarah pushed the light out, battling the inky tendrils. The darkest parts of her memory began to dissolve in the brightness, as she grasped the power of hope, love, and sacrifice. Together, they lunged through the door, bursting past the last barrier of darkness, falling into the warm embrace of light. They landed on soft grass, panting heavily, surrounded by color and warmth. Their home wasn't just a memory. It became a testament of their resilience. As the shadows writhed and shrieked at the edges, Sarah clutched Lily to her, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We did it, baby." But their victory was short-lived when a low growl reverberated in the air. "You can't escape forever." The chilling sound sent tremors through Sarah's bones. "We'll fight. Together," she vowed, her head held high, determination igniting a flame in her heart. She turned to Lily, heart swelling. "You're my light, and nothing will tear us apart again." As they stood united, the shadows receded, the echoes of lost souls transforming into whispers of hope, illuminating a path forward. But their journey wasn't quite over. The shadows would always linger, reminding them of the pain, but now they faced it together. "This is just the beginning," Sarah whispered, looking to a future bright with possibility. With every breath, they would carry the light of their love, holding each other fiercely against whatever darkness came next. As the sun rose over the horizon, it began to shine even brighter, spilling warmth and hope into their hearts, reminding them that love truly could conquer all. And as they took a step forward, hand in hand, they embraced the life waiting ahead. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this tale concludes. This is the moment to show your support. Don't be left in the dark.